Deep beneath the world, there is a cave. It is dark there. It is quiet. The air is cold and still. Few people have ever found it. Fewer have ever gone inside. And at the very bottom, in the deepest part of the dark, something waits. It does not sleep. It does not hunt. It does not call out. It only sits alone in the silence. This is the strongest Pokémon in the world. It could go anywhere. It could do almost anything. Nothing alive could stand against it. And yet it chose this. It chose the dark. It chose the deep and the quiet. It chose to be alone. Tonight, we are going to ask why. And before we begin, a small and gentle thing. If you like falling asleep to quiet stories like this one, you can follow along by subscribing. Then the next story will find you on the next quiet night. That is all I will ask. Now let your eyes close if they want to. Let your breathing slow, and let us go down into the dark and sit for a while with the one who waits there. Let us start with a strange fact. It is the fact that everything else tonight will grow from. Most living things are born. Think of how that works. There is a parent, there is an egg, or a mother, or both. A small life begins. It grows in the warm and the safe, and then it comes into the world. It is new, but it is not alone. It has a parent, it has a kind, it has a place to belong from the very first moment. That is how almost every Pokémon comes to be. The slow way, the natural way. The way that has happened over and over since the world was young. But the one in the cave did not come into the world like that. It had no mother. It had no egg. It was not born at all. It was made. It was made in a room. It was made by people. It was made on purpose, with tools and with study, by hands that meant to build a living thing. And then, one day, it opened its eyes for the first time, and it was alive. Sit with that for a moment. It is a stranger thing than it first sounds. A born creature has a place from the start. It has a parent who wanted it, or at least a parent who made it the natural way. It has others of its kind. It has a thread that ties it back into the long story of life. A made creature has none of that. It has no mother to return to. It has no kind to belong to. It has no thread tying it back to anything. It simply appears fully formed in a room. And then it must ask the question that no born creature ever has to ask. What am I? That is the question. That is the quiet question at the center of this whole story. And it does not have an easy answer. It may not have an answer at all. Does a made thing have a self? Does it have an inside, a true inside, the way you and I do? Or is it only a clever copy, shaped to look alive? Does a made thing have a soul? Does it belong anywhere? Can a creature that was built on purpose by other hands ever truly call any place its home? The old records do not say. The makers wrote down what they did. They did not write down what it meant. And here is the gentle thing about a question like this. You do not have to answer it tonight. You are not meant to. This is the kind of question that the old stories hold up to the light and turn slowly and never quite close. We will sit beside it. We will look at it from a few sides, and then we will let it stay open, the way it has always stayed open. Because the truth is, the one in the cave never got an answer either. It was made, it woke, and then it was left to wonder, alone, what it was, and whether it mattered, and whether anywhere in all the wide world there was a place that was meant for it. But to understand the made one, we have to begin somewhere else. We have to begin with the one it was copied from. We have to begin with the first. Long before anyone built a life in a room, there was a small and gentle creature that life had made on its own. The old stories call it Mew. Mew is one of the oldest mysteries in the world. It is said to be the ancestor of all Pokémon, the very first, the one that everything else came from. The stories say that deep inside Mew sleeps the beginning of every kind of Pokémon there is. Every shape, every type, all of them folded together in one small body. Picture that slowly. One small creature, and inside it, quietly, the seed of all life. You would think a being like that would be grand, towering, fearsome, but Mew is not. Mew is tiny. Mew is soft and pink, light enough to drift on the air, and Mew is gentle. It is playful. It is shy. Mew is so rare that for a long time most people believed it was only a myth. They thought it was a story and nothing more. A name in an old book, a picture that no one had ever truly seen. For years, no one could prove that Mew was real at all. That is how Mew lives. It hides. It drifts through deep jungles far from people. It plays when no one is watching. And when someone does come close, it slips away and is gone, and the place is quiet again, as if it had never been there. So this is the first one. Mew. Made by nature the slow and natural way. Gentle. Free. At home in the green and growing world. Belonging to everything because everything came from it. Now hold that picture in your mind. Hold it carefully. Because the whole of tonight's story turns on a single contrast, and this is one half of it. On one side there is Mew. Born of nature, soft and kind, playful and free. A creature that belongs to the world completely because it is the source the world flowed from. And on the other side, there will be the made one. Built by hands, made to be stronger, woken in a cold room with no parent and no kind, a creature that belongs to nothing and was given no reason why. One was grown, one was built, one was loved into being by the slow work of nature. One was simply made because someone decided they could. Everything that goes wrong in this story, and everything that aches in it, comes from that one difference. Keep it close. We will come back to it again and again, because someone long ago looked at gentle Mew, and they did not feel wonder and leave it in peace. They felt something else. They felt the pull to take it apart and learn its secrets and use them to build a new life of their own, a stronger one. And to do that, first they had to find it. So far, this is where we stand. There is a question, and the question is what a made life truly is. There is a first creature, Mew, gentle and natural and free, and there is the shadow of what is coming, a choice made by people to copy that gentle life and build something stronger from it. What they built is waiting for us in the dark, but first we have to follow them into the jungle. We have to find the records they left behind, and we have to watch quietly as the strongest Pokémon in the world is brought into being. One careful step at a time. That is where we will go next. The story of how the Made One came to be is not told all at once. It is told in pieces. It survives in old records, pages of notes left behind by the people who did it. So let us follow those records now. Slowly. The way you might read an old diary by candlelight, one quiet line at a time. It begins, the records say, with a search. Far away, in a deep and distant jungle, there were old stories. Stories of a rare and gentle creature, the ancestor, the first one, the little pink Pokémon that almost no one had ever seen. Most people thought it was only a legend, but some people did not. Some people believed the stories were true, and they wanted to find out. So they went looking, into the green, into the heat and the wet and the deep shade of the trees, searching for a creature that did not want to be found, and the records say they found it, or they found its trace, a sign, a proof. After all the years of doubt, here at last was something real. The gentle ancestor was not a myth, it was alive. And now, people had found it. This was the first moment. And here, already, the story could have gone another way. They could have stood there, in the green light of the jungle, and simply felt wonder. They could have watched the gentle creature and learnt from it and left it in peace. The discovery alone was a marvel. It would have been enough, but it was not enough, because the people who found it did not only feel wonder, they felt something else. They looked at the oldest, gentlest life in the world, and they thought, we could use this. We could take what makes it special. We could build something new from it. Something of our own, something stronger. And so the records turn, here, from a search into a plan. They stop being about finding a life. They start being about making one. The work that followed was long. The records grow careful and cold. They speak of study, of taking what they needed from the gentle creature, of testing, and trying and failing and trying again. It was patient work, it was clever work, and underneath all the cleverness, quietly, it was the work of building a living thing on purpose, the way you would build a tool. They were not growing a life the slow, natural way. They were not waiting on an egg, or a season, or the quiet work of nature. They were making one, by hand, to their own design, stronger than the gentle thing they had copied. Stronger, they hoped, than anything that had ever lived. Let us slow down here and sit with that long work for a while, because it was long. The records make that much clear, even as they hide so much else. Building a life is not a quick thing. Even for clever people with clever machines, it took a great deal of time. There were days and weeks and very likely years of it, long stretches of patient, painstaking work, trying something and watching it fail and beginning again, adjusting, refining, bending the work a little closer each time to the thing they were reaching for. Picture those long days in the quiet of the lab, the careful hands, the watchful eyes, the slow and steady labor of people trying to do something no one had ever done. There would have been excitement in it. There would have been a kind of pride. Each small step forward must have felt like a wonder. They were not just studying life, they were learning to make it. And every day they came a little closer. But somewhere in all that patient work, the thing they were building began, quietly, to become a someone. That is the strange line they crossed without quite noticing. At the start, it was a project, a set of problems to solve, a design to perfect. It was a thing in their minds, the way a machine is a thing, and for a long time that may have been true. But life does not stay a thing. As their work grew closer to its goal, the something they were building slowly filled with a someone. A self began to gather inside it, a mind, a will, the faint first stirrings of a creature that would one day soon open its eyes and look back at them. Did they notice? The records do not say. Perhaps they were too busy with the work to feel the change. Perhaps they told themselves right up to the end that it was only a creation, only a thing they were making. It is easy to do that. It is easy to keep calling something a thing long after it has quietly become a someone, because the moment you admit it is a someone, everything changes. You owe it things then. You are responsible. And they were not ready to be responsible. So perhaps they kept their eyes on the work and did not let themselves look too closely at what was waking up under their hands. There is a hush over this part of the story, a sense of something enormous happening. Very quietly, in a small and ordinary room, the most extraordinary act imaginable, the making of a living mind, carried out with tools and notes and patient daily labor, by people who may not have fully understood what they were doing until it was done. And all the while, in the heart of their machines, the made one was coming into being. Not all at once, slowly, gathering itself out of their work day by day, becoming, breath by breath, the thing it would be, the strongest mind the world had ever known, taking shape in the dark, waiting for the moment it would wake. It is almost tender if you let it be. Before all the fear, before the cold, there was just this, a long, patient making. People bent over their work with care, building something they believed in, and a new life quietly assembling itself in the warm dark of their machines, not yet knowing anything at all, not yet cold, not yet afraid, not yet alone, just a life on its way toward its first breath like any other, waiting in the dark to begin. That is the last gentle moment in the made one's beginning. The quiet before, the long patient work, and the new life gathering, and the makers full of hope and wonder, and none of them yet knowing how it would turn. Hold that moment softly. It is the closest the made one's story ever comes to the warmth that every born thing is given. The brief, hushed while before it woke, when it was still only a hope taking shape in the dark, and no one was afraid of it yet. And then, one day, the records say it worked. A new life opened its eyes. Think about that morning, if it was a morning. In a quiet room, far from any jungle, a creature woke for the very first time. It had no mother waiting for it. It had no others of its kind, it had only the cold room and the people who had built it, watching to see what they had done. This was the Made One. This was Mewtwo, the strongest Pokémon in the world, only minutes old. And there is something strange folded inside even that first breath. Something most of us never think about, because it could never happen to us. The Made One woke up already grown. Think about your own beginning, or the beginning of any born creature. None of us arrive finished. We come into the world small and soft and helpless. We cannot walk, we cannot speak, we cannot even hold up our own heads, and then, slowly, over a long and gentle stretch of time, we grow. We learn the world a little at a time. We are carried and fed and watched over while we slowly become ourselves. Childhood, we call it. That long, soft, patient becoming every born creature is given it. It is how a mind learns gently what the world is, before the world asks anything hard of it. The Made One was given none of that. It did not arrive small and soft and helpless. It woke up already strong, already sharp, already in some sense complete. It skipped the whole long, gentle becoming that every other creature is given. There was no slow learning of the world for it, no being carried while it grew, no patient years of growing into itself, safe and watched over. It simply opened its eyes one day, fully formed, with a powerful mind already turning, and was expected from that first moment to be what it was. Imagine how strange that would feel, if you can, to have no childhood at all, no soft early years to look back on, no memory of being small and held and slowly taught to wake up already grown, in a cold room, with a mind full of power and empty of any gentle past to stand on. Every other creature has a childhood beneath it, like soft ground to grow from. The Made One had nothing beneath it but the cold floor of the room it woke in, and maybe that is part of why the world felt so hard to it ever after. We learn how to belong by belonging. Slowly, as children, held by someone who loves us, we learn that the world can be warm by being kept warm. In those first soft years, the Made One never had those years. It never learned in the gentle way that it could be safe, or held, or loved. It woke straight into a world that was already asking things of it, with none of the soft early teaching that might have shown it how to bear them. So when we wonder why its heart grew cold, here is one more piece of the answer. It was never given the warm beginning that teaches a heart how to stay warm. It skipped the very part of life that is made of nothing but care, and a creature that never once in all its earliest days was simply cared for, has a long, hard road to ever learning what care even is. For a little while, the records are almost proud. They had done the impossible. They had built a life, and the life was strong. Stronger even than they had planned. Stronger than they had imagined was possible. And that is where the pride begins to turn into something else, because the Made One kept growing, and it kept getting stronger, and soon the record stopped sounding proud, and start sounding afraid. The thing they had built was more than they had bargained for. Its power was too great. It was, the records say, more than they could hold. And then the records do something quiet and terrible. They stop. The notes grow shorter. The careful entries thin out. And then there are no more. The diary of the people who made the strongest creature in the world simply ends mid-page and tells us nothing more. We do not know from the records exactly what happened in that room. The story does not say. We only know that the records stop, and that afterward, the Made One was no longer in the room. It was loose in a world that had no place for it, a world it had not been born into, a world that had not been waiting for it, a world where somewhere out there, the gentle creature it had been copied from was still drifting quietly through a distant jungle, free and whole, and at home. And the Made One was alone. After the records stop, the Made One becomes something different in the stories. It stops being a project. It starts being a legend of its own, and the legend is not a gentle one. The old descriptions of the Made One are heavy with its power. They speak of a mind so strong it could move the world with a thought. They speak of force and danger and a strength beyond anything natural, and they speak again and again of a heart that had gone cold. A creature of immense power, the stories say, and very little warmth. Now, it would be easy to stop there. It would be easy to call the Made One a monster and move on. A powerful, cold-hearted creature, born wrong, best feared and best avoided. That is the simple version of the story. That is how a frightened person would tell it. But tonight we are not telling the simple version. Tonight, in the quiet, let us tell it more gently. Let us ask a kinder question. Let us ask why the heart was cold. Think back to how it began. It was made, not born. It had no mother. It had no father. It had no others of its kind to grow up beside. It woke in a cold room full of power, and the first thing it saw was the faces of the people who had built it. Not parents, builders, people who had made it the way you make a tool, people who wanted it for its strength and feared it for its strength, and never once, in all the careful records, wrote down a single word about loving it. It was not made to be loved, it was made to be strong. And then, when its strength grew past what they wanted, even they turned away. Even the ones who made it. So picture the Made One now, loose in the wide world. It has more power than any creature alive, and it has nothing else. No home, no family, no kind, no place that was ever meant for it. No one anywhere who is glad that it exists. Of course the heart went cold. A heart does not go cold because it is cruel. A heart goes cold because it was never once kept warm. The Made One was given everything except the one thing that every born creature gets for free. It was never given a place to belong. It was never told by anyone that it was wanted, and so the coldness in the old stories is not really cruelty. When you look at it gently, it is loneliness. It is the loneliness of a creature that has all the power in the world, and no reason to use it, and no one to use it for. It is the loneliness of waking up and being the only one of your kind, and knowing that you were not born but built, and that the ones who built you were afraid of what they had done. Remember the question from the start of our story. What is a made thing? Does it have a self? Does it have a soul? Does it belong anywhere? Here, in the cold heart of the Made One, the question becomes an ache, because if the Made One had no soul, then none of this would hurt it. A tool does not feel lonely. A copy does not long for a home. The very fact that there is a coldness, a heaviness, a turning away, tells us something. It tells us there is someone in there, someone who can be hurt, someone who noticed that no place in all the world was made for them, and felt the cold of that and carried it. And think of the contrast. Hold it the way we said we would. The gentle ancestor belonged to everything. The whole world flowed out of it. It drifted free and shy and warm through the green, at home wherever it went, because everything was, in a way, its child. The Made One belonged to nothing. It was a copy of that warmth, built in a cold room, and then left out in a world that had no place for it. Same beginning, the gentle creature. Two lives as far apart as lives can be. One was the source of all belonging. The other was given none, so that is the Made One as the legends leave it. Immensely strong, deeply alone, a cold heart that is not cruel but unwarmed, a self with nowhere to be a self, a soul perhaps with no home to rest in. The question is what a creature like that does next. When you have all the power in the world and no place in it, where do you go? What do you reach for? Do you take the world by force, since it would not take you in? Do you go looking for the ones who made you? Do you go looking for the gentle creature you were copied from? Or do you do something quieter, something sadder, something stranger than all of those? We will come to what the Made One chose. But first we should know that it was not alone in being made. Other lives too were built by hands rather than born. Other creatures woke in rooms instead of nests, and their stories sit beside the Made Ones like quiet mirrors, each one asking the same old question in its own way. So let us leave the Made One for a moment, out there in the wide and empty world, and let us look at the others, the other made things, the ones who, like the one in the cave, had to wonder what they were. The Made One was not the first life to be built by hand, and it would not be the last. All through the world's history, people have looked at life and wondered if they could make it themselves, not grow it the slow and natural way, make it build it, shape it to a plan. The old stories never quite say that these made creatures belong together. They were built in different places for different reasons by different hands. But if you lay their stories side by side, something quietly connects them. Each one woke without being born. Each one was built for a purpose someone else had chosen. And each one in its own way had to face the same question the made one faced. What am I if I was made? Let us look at 3 of them, softly, one at a time. The first was made of almost nothing at all. It was built, the stories say, entirely out of code, out of numbers and programs and pure information. It was the first Pokémon that people made from the ground up. They called it Porygon, not from flesh and bone, but from data, a living thing, written rather than grown. Think about how strange and lovely that is. People sat at their machines and they wrote a creature into being, line by line, and when they were done, the creature could move. It could think in its way. It can slip into the spaces inside machines and travel through them like a fish through water. It does not breathe. It does not eat. It was never alive the way you are alive. And yet there it is, moving, curious, real. A small, bright creature made of pure thought. Does a creature of code dream? Does it wonder what it is? The stories do not say. But it was made like the one in the cave, and so it belongs here, in our quiet gathering of made things, the gentlest of them. A life written by hand, and somehow, against all sense, alive. The second one carries more sorrow. Long, long ago, before people, it lived. It was a real creature in its own ancient time. It hunted, it rested, it lived its life, whatever that life was, and then, like all things, it died. The long ages buried it. It became stone, and it was gone. It should have stayed gone, but people found its remains, and people, being people, did not let it rest. They brought it back. They took the ancient stone of its body, and they woke it again, after all those millions of years. A second life, given to a creature that had already finished its first. And here the sorrow deepens, because they did not bring it back to let it live. They brought it back to make it fight. They changed it. They rebuilt it. They fixed a great weapon to its back, and they made it sharper and stronger than it had ever been in its first ancient life. They turned a living creature into a cannon. The world would call this one Genesect. So it woke a second time into a world it did not know, long after everything it had ever known was dust. And it woke not as itself, but as a weapon, shaped by hands that wanted its strength and cared nothing for its rest. A first life lived and ended in its own time. A second life taken without asking and bent to someone else's purpose. Of all the made things, this one was not even built from nothing. It was built from a grave. The third one is the one I want to sit with longest, because its story is the one that turns toward the light. It was built to be a weapon. That was its whole purpose. People made it on purpose to be strong enough to stand against even the most powerful beings in the world, the mightiest forces, the oldest legends, the very kind of creature the made one itself belonged among. This one was built to face them, to fight what could not otherwise be fought, and because it was so strong, its makers were afraid of it. The same old fear again. So they did something to hold it back. They placed a mask upon it. A heavy mask fixed over its head, made to cage its power and keep it calm. The mask kept it obedient. The mask also kept it from ever becoming what it truly was, and they did not give it a name. Not a real one. They gave it a label instead. They called it Type Null, a name that means more or less nothing at all. A word for empty, a word for blank. They looked at a living creature, built to be the strongest of its kind, and they called it nothing. Several of them were made, and then the work was judged too dangerous and it was shut down. The made creatures were sealed away, locked in the dark, masked and numbered and named nothing and forgotten. That could have been the end of it. For a long time it was, but the story does not end there. Long after, one of these sealed creatures was found again, and the one who found it did not want a weapon. They did not want a tool, or a number, or a thing to control. They saw the masked creature, locked away and called nothing, and they felt something the makers never had. They felt kindness. They felt the simple wish to help, so they did not command it. They did not cage it further. They trusted it. Slowly, patiently, they stayed near it, and they were gentle with it, and they let it learn for the very first time that not every hand that reached for it wanted to use it, and something happened that the makers, with all their cleverness, had never managed. The mask came off, not torn away, not forced. The trust between them simply grew strong enough that the heavy mask was no longer needed, and when it fell away, the creature changed. Freed at last, it became what it had always been underneath. Its true shape, its full self. The thing the makers had been so afraid of turned out, when it was finally trusted, to be a gentle and loyal companion. And the one who freed it did one more thing, the thing that mattered most of all. They gave it a real name, no longer nothing, no longer a number, no longer empty. It was given a name of its own. They called it Silverly. And with that name, it stopped being a made weapon, and it became someone. A creature built to fight, masked and numbered and called nothing, became a true self in the end, not through power, not through battle, but through being trusted and being freed and being named. Hold that beside the one in the cave, and you will feel the ache of it, because that is the one thing the Made One never got. No gentle hand ever reached for it without fear. No one ever stayed near it long enough for the cold to thaw. No one ever trusted it. No one ever freed it from what it was built to be, and no one in all the records ever gave it a name of its own and meant it kindly. It shows us that the Made One's loneliness was not the only way the story could go. A made thing can be more than its making. A built life can become someone if just one person is willing to be gentle with it. The Made One simply never met that person. The Made One was not alone in being strange. We have looked at a few lives built by hand, the one made of code, the one raised from a grave and turned into a weapon, the one masked and called nothing, who became someone in the end. But the world is wider than that, and the longer you look at it, the more you find that life comes to be in stranger ways than anyone first thinks. Most living things are born, we have said that, but not all of them. Some are made, some are raised from stone long after they should have ended. Some come from places that are not this world at all, and each of these strange beginnings in its own quiet way circles back to the same old question the Made One carries. What is a life? And does it matter how that life began? So let us wander for a while through the stranger corners of the world. There is no hurry. You do not have to follow every turn. Let the names drift past you like soft lights on water. We will always come back to the one in the cave. Let us begin with the gentlest answer the world ever gave to the Made One's question. Long ago, many centuries past, there was a great inventor. We do not know much about this person. The story has worn thin with time, but we know what they made. With patience and with skill, and with what must have been a great deal of love, this inventor built a Pokémon by hand. The world would come to call it Magearna. Not grown, not born, built, shaped from fine metal and careful craft, piece by piece, over what may have been a lifetime of work. That alone would make it like the others. A made thing, a built life. But this one was different, because the inventor did not stop at the body. The inventor gave it a soul. The old stories speak of a true heart placed inside Magearna. Its makers called that heart a soul heart. Not a heart of muscle, the kind that beats. A soul, a real one, a made soul, built by hand, and yet somehow genuine. And with that soul, the creature could feel. It could know joy. It could know sorrow. It could care for others and be cared for in return. It was a made thing, like the one in the cave, but it was made to feel. Think about how different that is. The Made One in the cave was built to be a weapon. It was made strong and feared and given no warmth at all. This other creature, this gentle made thing, was built to be a friend. It was made with care, it was made to love and to be loved. Two made lives, The same impossible act, a soul brought into being by human hands. But one was made in fear, and one was made in love, and that difference shaped everything that followed for each of them. The stories say the gentle maid creature loved its maker dearly, and when its maker was at last gone, as all makers must one day be, the creature did not turn cold. It did not break. It kept its love. It carried it. It held on to the warmth it had been given, long after the one who gave it had passed out of the world. A maid heart, still full, still gentle, still loving, even when the hand that built it was no longer there to hold. And here is why this matters so much to our story. Remember the question we have carried all this way. Does a made thing have a soul? Can something built by hand truly feel, truly be a self, truly belong? Here, in this one gentle creature, the world seems to answer, yes, it can. A made thing can have a real soul. It can love and grieve and remember. It can be every bit as alive on the inside as anything that was ever born. So the made one's coldness was never proof that it had no soul. We can see that now, because here is another made creature built the same impossible way, and it is full of warmth to the brim. The difference was never in the making. The difference was in how each one was treated once it was made. One was given love, one was given fear, and each became what it was given. The made one in the cave could have been this: a gentle thing, a loving thing, a friend. It had the same spark inside it. It was simply never shown that the spark was welcome. Hold that thought softly as we move on. We will need it again at the end. Now let us turn to a stranger kind of beginning. Not a life built from nothing. A life pulled back from the long ago. Deep in the rock of the world, there are fossils. You know what a fossil is. A creature lived, long ago, far longer ago than people. It swam, or it flew, or it crawled across an ancient world that no living eyes would ever see. And then it died, and slowly, over ages beyond counting, its body turned to stone. The creature was gone. Only its shape remained, pressed into the rock like a memory the earth refused to let go of. For most of the world's history, that was the end. A fossil was a quiet stone, a picture of something that used to be, nothing more. But people, being people, were not content to let the dead stay dead. They built machines, clever machines that could look at the stone shape of an ancient creature and somehow call it back, coax life into it again, wake it after all those countless ages into a world that had moved on entirely without it, and it worked. Think of the creatures the world brought back this way. Aerodactyl, a great winged hunter of the ancient skies, woken from a drop of golden amber that had held it sleeping since before the dawn of people. Omain and Omar star, spiral-shelled swimmers of seas that dried up 100 million years ago. Kabuto and Kabutops, hard-shelled and many-legged, that scuttled across ocean floors no living creature has ever seen. All of them gone for ages beyond imagining. All of them brought back, blinking, into a world that was no longer theirs. There is a wonder in that, and there is a deep sadness too, because imagine waking from that long sleep. Imagine opening your eyes after 100 million years. The sea you knew is gone, the sky you knew is gone. Every other creature you ever lived beside turned to dust and stone before the first person ever walked the earth. You are awake again, yes, you are alive again, but you are the last and only one of your kind in a world that has entirely forgotten you. You did not ask to come back, and there is no one left who remembers the world you came from. This is the same strange gift the rebuilt weapon was given. The ancient creature woken and turned into a cannon. A second life, handed to something that had already finished its first. But the fossil creatures, at least, were not made into weapons. They were simply woken and allowed to be. Small mercy, perhaps, but a mercy all the same. And notice what ties them to the made one. The fossil creatures did not choose to return. The made one did not choose to be made. Neither of them asked for the life they were given. Both simply woke one day into a world that had not been waiting for them and had to find some way to go on. The made and the raised from stone are cousins in their way. Both are lives that began because a person decided they should. both had to learn from nothing how to be alive in a world with no place set for them. So far then, we have wandered through three kinds of strange beginning. The made soul full of warmth, the weapon raised from a grave, the fossils woken from stone into a world long gone. Different stories, the same quiet thread runs through all of them. A life begun in an unusual way, left to wonder what it is and where it belongs. Rest here a moment if you like. The night is deep, and there is no rush. We have more strange corners of the world to wander yet. Let us go back now to the creature made of code. The small bright one written into being out of pure information. Because its story did not end at its making either, and what happened to it afterward says something quiet and true about the people who make things. When people build something, they rarely leave it alone. The little code creature worked. It was a wonder, a life made of numbers, moving and curious and real. The makers could have stopped there and simply marveled at what they had done, but they did not, because that is not how makers are. They looked at the thing they had built, and almost at once they began to think about how to make it better. So they upgraded it. They wrote new code. They gave it improvements. A second version was made called Porygon 2, stronger and sharper than the first. And for a while that was better. The creature could do more. It was more capable, more powerful, more impressive, but the makers still did not stop. They wanted more. They wanted the code creature to be able to do something extraordinary. They wanted it to travel, not just through the spaces inside machines, but between worlds, across the strange gaps that lie between one reality and another. So they made a third form and named it Porygon Z. They wrote new programming for it. Bold programming, daring programming. Software meant to let a creature of code slip through the walls of the world itself. And here the story grows uncertain. Because that final upgrade may not have worked the way they hoped. The stories say the new programming made the creature strange. Its behavior changed. It began to move in ways that were hard to predict. Some say the software was flawed. Some say the creature was given more than its small written soul could carry, and it became unstable and odd and not quite right. The makers had reached too far. In trying to make their creation perfect, they may have broken something gentle in it. Does this sound familiar? It should, because it is the Made One's story too, told in a softer key. The Made One was built strong and then built stronger until it grew past what its makers could hold, and they came to fear it. The code creature was upgraded, and upgraded again, until something in it bent out of true. In both stories, the makers could not leave well enough alone. In both stories, the reaching for more was the very thing that did the harm. There is an old kind of sadness in that. The makers were not cruel, they were curious, they loved what they could do, but curiosity with no gentleness to guide it can wound the very thing it builds. The code creature did not ask to be upgraded past its limits. The Made One did not ask to be built past what the world could welcome. Each was simply made and then pushed by hands that wanted to see how far the thing could go. Keep that in your mind as the night goes on. The Made One's deepest wound was not that it was made, it was that the ones who made it could not stop, and could not be gentle, and could not love what they had built. Now let us turn back for a while to the very first one, the gentle ancestor, Mew. We met Mew at the start, the soft pink creature that all life is said to flow from. But there is more to Mew's mystery than we have said, and it is worth wandering into here in the quiet middle of the night. Mew is, above all, a thing almost never seen. For the longest time, people were sure it did not exist. There were old paintings of it, old carvings, old stories passed down from those who claimed to have glimpsed it, deep in the jungles, far from any town. But no one could ever prove it. Expedition after expedition went looking and found nothing, and came home with only more rumors. Mew became a kind of ghost, a creature that everyone had heard of, and no one had touched. A legend so faint that serious people stopped believing it at all, and yet it was real. All along, it was real. Drifting through the deep green, light as a breath, playing where no eyes could follow, slipping away whenever anyone came near. The most important creature in the world, perhaps, the source of all the rest, and it spent its days hidden, gentle, and alone with its own quiet games. There is something lovely in that. The first of all Pokémon does not rule. It does not demand to be worshipped. It simply plays and drifts and hides and asks nothing of anyone, the mightiest origin, wrapped in the softest, shyest little form. But there is a deeper mystery folded inside Mew, and it touches our story closely. If Mew holds the beginnings of every Pokémon inside it, then in a way, every Pokémon is a kind of copy of Mew, a piece of it grown into its own shape. And some people have wondered quietly whether there are other copies too, stranger ones. There is a creature called Ditto that can become anything. A small, simple, shapeless thing. On its own, it is little more than a soft pink blob, plain and almost featureless, but it can look at any other creature and remake itself in that creature's image perfectly, in an instant. It can become anything it sees. Some have wondered if this shape-shifting creature is somehow tied to Mew. They point to the colour, they point to the strange, boundless ability to take any form, much as Mew is said to hold all forms inside it. They wonder if it might be a kind of failed echo of Mew, a copy that did not quite come out whole, a version of that all-containing life, simplified down to a soft blank thing that can only borrow shapes, never keep one of its own. The games never say this. It is a thing people have wondered, not a thing the stories confirm, so we will not call it true. We will only set it here, gently, as one more soft question in a night already full of them. A shapeless creature that can be anything, and might, just might, be a faint and broken cousin of the source of all life. And do you see how it rhymes with the Made One? The Made One was a copy too. A copy of Mew, built by hand, that came out stronger but colder. The shapeless creature, if the wondering is true, would be a copy of Mew that came out simpler and blanker. Different copies, different flaws, but both of them strange reflections of that one gentle original, each one missing something the original had, each one a little lost because of it. The world, it seems, is full of copies of that first soft life. Most of them we call ordinary Pokémon, and never think about it. A few of them came out strange, and one of them, the strangest, sits alone in a cave in the dark, wondering what it is. So far, every strange life we have wandered past began here, in this world. Made here, grown here, raised from this world's own ancient stone. But the world is not as closed as it seems, and some lives do not begin in our world at all. There are, the stories say, places beyond our world, other spaces, other skies, realities that sit alongside our own, just out of reach, behind a kind of wall that is almost always shut, and sometimes the wall opens. Now and then, in certain places, the air itself seems to tear. A gap appears where no gap should be, a hole in the sky or in the space between things, opening onto somewhere else entirely. People came to call these tears ultra wormholes, and the world beyond them ultra space. And through these tears, every so often something comes. People came to call them the ultra beasts, the ones from beyond, creatures that were never born in our world, and never made in it, creatures that simply arrived, stepping through a tear in the sky from a home we cannot see or name. They do not belong to our world's long story of life. They come from a different story altogether, one we know almost nothing about, and they are strange in ways that are hard to hold in the mind. One drifts like a great glass thing, beautiful and slow and not quite right. One moves like something built rather than grown, all hard angles where a creature should have soft ones. One is so bright, or so vast, or so wrong to the eye that people who saw it could barely describe it afterward. They look like life, almost. But life from a place where the rules were written differently than here. It would be easy to make these visitors frightening. People often did. They came from the unknown, and the unknown is easy to fear. But let us not tell it that way tonight. Let us tell it gently, the way you might think of a strange light passing across the night sky. Not a threat, a wonder, a reminder that the world is far larger and far stranger than any one region's myths can hold. Because here is the quiet thing the visitors teach us. We spend so long asking where our own life came from, born or made or raised from stone, and all the while, just behind the sky, there are whole other ways of being alive that we never even thought to imagine. Lives that follow rules we do not know, origins we cannot guess. The question of where life comes from turns out to be far deeper than we ever supposed. It does not even stop at the edge of our world, and they connect these visitors to the one in the cave, because they too are out of place. They too arrived in a world with no home set for them, no kind to belong to, no thread tying them into the local story of life. They wander a world that is not theirs, strange and alone, much as the Made One wanders a world that never wanted it. The Made One was born of no mother. The visitors were born of no world we know. Different kinds of orphan, the same deep loneliness of having no place that was meant for you. Let us pause there for a breath, because we have wandered far, and the path home is long and soft. Even within our own world, away from the tears in the sky, life finds odd and humble ways to begin. Not every strange origin is grand. There are creatures called Grimer and Muck, the stories say, that rose up out of sludge and waste, where people poured their refuse, where the ground grew sour and thick with the things we threw away. Something stirred and took shape and began to live. A life born not of love and not of a lab, but of the leftovers of our own carelessness. There is a strange tenderness even in that. We made a mess of a place, and life, stubborn and patient, found a way to be born there anyway. There are creatures people have wondered about for stranger reasons still. Round things like Voltorb and Electrode, shaped oddly like the very balls used to catch Pokémon. Some have quietly asked whether a few of these creatures might once have been ordinary things, somehow given life, somehow turned from object into living being by forces no one understands. The games do not confirm it. It is only a wondering, but it sits well with everything else tonight. Because the deeper you look at this world, the more you find that the line between a thing and a living thing is far blurrier than it first appears. A creature of pure code, a soul built of metal, a blob that can be anything, a visitor from behind the sky, a life that grew out of waste, an object perhaps, that woke and became a someone. Over and over, the world refuses to keep a clean line between the made and the born, the living and the not. Life keeps spilling over every edge we try to draw around it, and the Made One in the cave sits somewhere in the middle of all of it. Not the strangest in the end, not the saddest, just one more of the world's many odd beginnings. One more life that started in an unusual way and had to find out, alone, what it was. Before we drift on, let us sit a while longer with the Made One itself. We have spoken of how it was built, and how its heart grew cold, but we have not yet looked gently at what it actually was, at the sheer strange power of the thing they made. The stories are heavy with it. They say its mind was the strongest in the world, not its body, though its body was strong too, its mind. The Made One could reach out with thought alone and move the world around it. It could lift great weights without a touch. It could speak, in a way, without ever making a sound, pressing its thoughts straight into the minds of others. It could see and shape and bend things that the rest of us can only ever touch with our hands. Picture that, slowly, in the dark. A creature sitting still, perfectly still, in a quiet cave. And all around it, the world bending softly to its will, without it lifting a single limb, stones drifting up from the floor, the air itself stirring. The whole space humming with a power that has no need of muscle or motion. The strongest force in the world, wrapped in stillness, doing nothing at all. There is an awe in that, a real one. The Made One is not just strong the way a great beast is strong. It is strong in a way that feels almost like a law of nature, like gravity or the tide. A power so deep that the world simply answers it. And here is the strange thing about such power. It made the Made One more alone, not less. Think about it. If your every thought could move the world, then nothing in the world could ever truly be your equal. You could never wrestle with a friend, or lean on someone stronger, or be carried for a while when you were tired. There would be no one stronger to carry you. There never could be. The more powerful you are, the fewer hands there are in all the world that could ever hold you up. The Made One's power did not free it. It sealed it inside a solitude that nothing could reach. So the very thing its makers prized, its strength, the thing they built it for, was also the thing that locked it away from every kind of comfort. They made it strong, and in making it strong, without meaning to, they made it lonely past all repair. Now let us ask a harder question, a quiet one, for the deep of the night. Why do makers so often come to fear the things they make? We have seen it again and again tonight. The people who built the Made One came to fear it, and turned away. The people who built the masked weapon feared it, and caged it, and sealed it in the dark. Even the gentle code creature was upgraded past what was safe, by hands that wanted more and more. Over and over, people reach out to create something powerful, and then, when they succeed, they flinch from what they have done. Why? Part of it is simple. People fear what they cannot control, and a made thing, once it is truly alive, cannot be fully controlled. That is what being alive means. It means having a will of your own. The makers wanted a life, but they wanted a life that would obey, and those two wishes do not fit together. A real life does not obey. A real life chooses. The moment the Made One became truly alive, it became something its makers could no longer command. And so they were afraid, but there is a deeper fear underneath that one, and it is a sadder fear. When you make a living thing, you become, in a way, its parent. You are responsible for it. You owe it something. You owe it care and patience and a place to belong. The makers did not want that responsibility. They wanted the glory of having built a life. They did not want the long, hard, tender work of raising one. And when the Made One looked back at them, alive and needing, and asking in its silent way to be cared for, they did not know how. So they called it dangerous. They called it a failure. They sealed it away or turned from it, and told themselves it was the made thing's fault. It is easier to fear a thing than to care for it. That is the quiet, sad truth at the bottom of so many of these stories. The makers feared their creations partly because fear asked less of them than love would have. The Made One paid the price for that. It was not feared because it was evil. It was feared because caring for it would have been hard and fearing it was easy. And a creature that is feared instead of loved learns very quickly to grow cold. Let this settle softly as the night goes on. The Made One's tragedy was not made of malice. No villain twirled a moustache over it. It was made of something far more ordinary and far more human. People who reached too far and then would not take responsibility for what they had reached and grasped. That is all. That is enough to break a heart that never even got the chance to be warm. Let us widen out once more and look at the Made One's solitude in the company of others who share it. Because, as we have begun to see, it is not the only great one who keeps a lonely vigil. Across the world, in places few people ever go, there are other beings who stand alone, the very greatest of them, the ones the oldest myths speak of in hushed voices. There is said to be a keeper of time called Dialga, a single being, vast and ancient, through whom all the world's moments flow. It stands alone. There is only one. It has no kind, no equal, no companion, just itself, and the endless river of time it carries. There is said to be a keeper of space called Palkia, another single being, alone in its own way, holding open all the room the world needs to exist. One of a kind, unrepeated, solitary, as the mighty so often are. And there are others, guardians of deep and hidden places, keepers of the things the world needs to keep turning. Almost all of them are alone. One to a kind, no family, no flock, no others to share the long, long years with. This is simply how the world seems to arrange its greatest powers. It gives each one a vast and lonely duty, and then it gives them no one to share it with. To be a guardian in this world is almost always to be solitary. The duty is enormous, and it is carried alone, so when the Made One sits in its cave, alone in all the world, It is in stranger company than it knows. It is alone, yes, but so is the keeper of time, so is the keeper of space, so are the guardians of the deep places. The world is full of mighty beings, each one alone, each one carrying something vast in solitude. The Made One is the youngest of them perhaps, and the most accidental, but it joins a long and lonely line, a quiet brotherhood of the unrepeatable scattered across the world, none of them ever meeting, each of them alone. There is a strange comfort hidden in that, if you look at it gently. The Made One believed it was uniquely alone, the only made thing, the only one of its kind, and it was. But so is each of the great ones. Its loneliness, which felt like a punishment meant only for it, turns out to be the common lot of every mighty and singular thing in the world. It is not being singled out, it is simply great, and the great in this world are nearly always alone. Let us return for a moment to the bond at the very heart of all this. The bond between the Made One and the gentle ancestor it was copied from. We have kept them apart in our minds, the original and the copy, the soft, free first one, and the cold, made second one. But think for a moment about what they truly are to each other. The Made One was built from the gentle ancestor. Its very being was drawn out of that first soft life. In the oldest and simplest sense, the gentle ancestor is the source of the Made One. The Made One is, in a way, the ancestor's child, or its reflection, or its strange, sorrowful twin. They are not strangers. They are the closest kin that two creatures could possibly be. One is the wellspring, the other is the water drawn from it, and yet they have almost nothing in common. The ancestor is gentle. The Made One is cold. The ancestor is free. The Made One is alone. The ancestor belongs to everything. The Made One belongs to nothing. They began from the same single spark, and they ended as far apart as two lives can be. Not because of anything either of them did, only because of how each one was treated. The ancestor was left in peace, in the green, to be itself. The Made One was built in a cold room and feared and abandoned. Same beginning, worlds apart at the end. Imagine, just gently, if the two of them ever met. The stories do not tell us that they did, but imagine it. The gentle ancestor, drifting through its quiet jungle light as breath, and the Made One, the strong and lonely copy, standing before the very source it was drawn from. What would pass between them? Not a battle, surely. What would be the point? The Made One has nothing to prove to the thing it was copied from. Perhaps it would only look, perhaps it would only see, in that soft and gentle creature, everything it might have been, if only the world had been kinder when it woke. There is a deep ache in that picture, and a deep tenderness too. The copy gazing at the original, the Made One gazing at the warmth it was built from and never given. We do not know if it ever happened, but the very fact that it could have, that somewhere out there drifts the gentle source of the Made One's own being, means the Made One was never quite as orphaned as it believed. It had kin in the world after all, the oldest kin imaginable. It simply never knew how to reach it, and was never taught that it was allowed to try. Let us speak now of memory, because the Made One carries something most creatures do not. It remembers its own making. Most living things do not remember being born. The moment is too early, too dim. We come into ourselves slowly, and the beginning is lost in a soft fog. That is a mercy in its way. We are spared the memory of being so new and so helpless. But the Made One was not born slowly into a fog. It woke all at once, fully formed, with a mind already sharp. And so it remembers. It remembers the cold room. It remembers the first thing it ever saw, the faces of the people who built it, watching to see what they had done. It remembers, perhaps, the exact moment it understood that those faces were not glad, that they were afraid. The Made One's very first memory may be the memory of being feared. Imagine carrying that. Imagine that the oldest thing in your mind, the bottom stone of everything you are, is the memory of waking into a room where you were not wanted. Most of us are spared our beginnings, The made one was not. It has to carry its clear and cold forever, and so you can understand perhaps why it went to the dark. In the deep cave there is nothing to see, nothing to remember, no faces, no cold rooms, just the soft and forgiving dark, where memory loosens its grip, and the oldest cold stone of the mind can finally be set down for a while. The made one did not only seek solitude in the cave, perhaps it sought forgetting, the one mercy it was never given at the start, the chance to let the beginning fade. There is a gentleness in imagining that the dark gave it that somewhere in the long quiet, the sharp first memory softened just a little, that the cold room grew dim at last, that the made one in the stillness was finally allowed to forget how it began and let us end our wandering on hope. Because for all its sorrow, this story holds a quiet hope, and it would be wrong to leave it out. We have seen tonight that the made one's fate was not the only one possible. We saw the soul of metal, made in love, full of warmth to the brim. We saw the masked weapon called Nothing, who became someone the moment a single gentle hand chose to trust it. These were made things too. They carried the same impossible spark, and they did not grow cold, because someone was kind to them. So we know what the made one was missing. Not power, not a place to hide. It was missing one person, just one. One single voice that would say, "You are real, and you are wanted, and it does not matter how you began." The masked weapon got that voice, and it was enough to change everything. A whole life, turned warm by one act of kindness. The made one never met that voice, but the lesson stands, soft and clear, for anyone still awake to hear it. The difference between a cold heart and a warm one is not power or origin or fate. It is whether someone, somewhere, chose to be gentle. That is all it takes. That is all it ever takes. One person willing to stay and to trust and to give a true name kindly. It is a small thing and an enormous thing, and it is the whole secret of every warm life in this story. The made one's tragedy is simply that it never received it, and the made one's hope, faint but real, is that such a thing exists at all. That kindness can thaw even the coldest made heart, but it is never in truth too late. There is one more thread worth following before we turn home. It is the difference between a purpose and a meaning. They sound alike. They are not the same thing at all. The made one was given a purpose. That is certain. It was built to be strong. It was made to be a weapon or a wonder or a proof of what its makers could do. Its purpose was decided before it ever opened its eyes. It was handed to it, fully formed, by other people, for reasons of their own. But a purpose given by someone else is not the same as a meaning. A meaning is something a life finds for itself. A purpose says, "This is what you are for." A meaning says, "This is what makes my own life worth living." One is handed to you. The other you have to discover. The made one was rich in purpose and starved of meaning. It knew exactly what it had been built for. It had no idea at all what might make its life its own. And that is a special kind of emptiness. To know your purpose, and to feel nothing in it, to be told what you are for, and to find that it gives you no reason to go on. So picture the made one, free at last from its makers, standing in the wide world. Its purpose was finished. The weapon was loose. The proof was proven. And now what? The thing it was built for was behind it, and nothing inside it told it what to do next. No meaning had ever been planted there, only a purpose, now spent. This, perhaps, is the real reason it went to the cave. Not only to hide, not only to forget, but because with its purpose finished and no meaning to take its place, there was nowhere else that called to it. The world offered it power, which it did not want, and revenge, which it did not want, and rule, which it did not want. It did not want any of the things a weapon is supposed to want, and it had never been given the chance to learn what it might want instead. So it chose the only thing left: stillness, the quiet, a pause long enough perhaps to begin for the very first time to wonder what its life might mean now that its purpose was done. And maybe that is what it has been doing all this long while in the dark, not brooding, not plotting, not nursing some cold and ancient anger, just sitting in the deep quiet, slowly learning the one thing it was never taught, how to belong to itself. Let us sit with the Made One in its cave now, gently, and imagine its days. There is no danger in it, there is no story left to tell, only a quiet life in a quiet place that we can rest beside for a while. Picture the deep dark of it, the cool, still air, the faint sound of water somewhere, dripping slow and patient from the stone. No light reaches this far down, no voices, no footsteps. The world above goes on with all its noise and its hurry, and none of it comes here. Here there is only the dark, and the quiet, and the one who waits, and the Made One is not suffering in this picture. Let us be clear about that for our own comfort and for its. It is not writhing in some torment. It is simply still. After everything, the violence of its making, the fear in those first faces, the long, lonely years of being the only one of its kind, it has found a place where nothing reaches for it, and in that place it rests. Perhaps it floats slowly in the dark, perhaps it sits upon the cool stone, perhaps in the deep quiet, the great power that nothing in the world could match lies finally calm, like a sea with no wind on it, the strongest mind that ever was, at rest, not pushing, not reaching, not defending, just being in the soft and forgiving dark. Time moves differently in a place like that. There is no sun to mark the days, no seasons, no clocks, just the slow drip of water, and the long unbroken quiet, and the gentle blur of hours into days, into years. For a creature that remembers its own cold beginning too sharply, that slow blur may be the kindest thing of all. The dark does not ask it to remember. The dark does not ask it anything. The dark simply holds it and lets it be. And so the strongest creature in the world spends its days in the most ordinary way imaginable, quietly, alone, at peace, or near enough to peace that we can call it that, and let ourselves be soothed by it. There is something in that picture that is good for a tired mind to rest on. The idea that even the mightiest and most troubled of beings can find, in the end, a quiet place to set everything down. That the cave is not a prison, but a refuge. That the dark is not an ending, but a kind of rest. We have wandered very far tonight. We have gathered a whole strange family of lives, and circled the Made One's question from every side. There is almost nothing left to say. So let the gathering settle now. Let the names drift. Let the lights on the water dim, and let us begin, slowly, to make our way back to the one in the cave, for the last and quietest part of the story. There is something else these strange lives share with the Made One, something quieter than how they began. It is how few of them there are. Think about it. The Made One is the only one of its kind. There is no other like it anywhere. It was built once, and the record stopped, and no second one was ever finished. It is alone, not just in the cave, but in all the world. There is no mother, no father, no brother, no kind. When it looks out at the world, there is no face anywhere that looks back and says, I am like you. And the more you look, the more you find this is true of so many of the world's greatest creatures. The gentle ancestor is one of a kind. There is, as far as anyone knows, only one. The soul of metal, built by the old inventor, was one of a kind. The mighty beings of the oldest myths, the ones said to hold up time and space and the world between. Each stands alone, the only one of itself that has ever been or ever will be. The world's most powerful and most important creatures are, almost always, solitary, single, unrepeated. There is a strange sadness woven into greatness in this world. To be the mightiest is, very often, to be the only. And to be the only is to be alone in a way that smaller, more common creatures never have to know. A field mouse has thousands of its kind. A great legend has none. The smaller you are, the more company you keep. The greater you are, the lonelier the world becomes. The Made One sits at the far end of that. It is among the strongest things that have ever lived, and so it is among the most alone. Its power and its loneliness are not two separate facts. They are the same fact seen from two sides. It was made too strong to have any equal, and so it was made too strong to have any company. There is a lesson hiding in that, soft enough for a sleeping mind. The things we often wish for, to be the strongest, the rarest, the most special, the one of a kind, carry a hidden cost. The cost is company. The cost is belonging. The most ordinary creature in the world, surrounded by others just like it, has something the mightiest legend can never have. It is not alone, so when you picture the Made One in its cave, do not only picture its power, picture the silence around it. Picture how in all the wide world, there is no other voice that could ever truly understand what it is to be the thing that it is. That is the deepest part of its loneliness, not that it is hidden, that it is unrepeatable. Now let us turn gently to one small thing that ran through several of these stories. A small thing that turns out not to be small at all. Names. Remember the masked one? The creature built as a weapon, sealed in the dark and given a label that meant nothing. It was not until someone gave it a true name that it became someone. The name was not a small detail. The name was the turning point. To be named, truly named, by someone who means it kindly, is to be told, you are real. You are a someone, not a something. You matter enough to be called. The Made One was never truly named that way. It was given a name in a sense, a name that marks it as a copy of the gentle ancestor, a kind of second version, a thing that came after. But that name was not given in love. It was given in a record by people who feared it, as a label for a project. It is less a name than a description. It says what the Made One is made from. It does not say that the Made One is wanted, and maybe that is part of the ache too. To go through all of existence with a name that means copy, rather than a name that means you. To be called always by what you were built to be, and never once by who you turned out to become. There is a tenderness you can offer here, in the dark, even to a creature in a story. You can think of it not as a project or a copy or a weapon, but simply as the one who waits in the cave, the quiet one, the alone one. You can grant it in your own mind, the smallest gift the masked one was given. You can think of it as a someone, even if no one in its own story ever did. Let us slow down now and let the night carry us for a while. You do not need to follow closely anymore. We have gathered all the pieces. There is nothing left to learn before the end. So let your thoughts loosen, let the names blur, let the strange and gentle company we have gathered drift together into one soft feeling. A pink creature drifting through a deep green jungle, light as breath, the source of all the rest. A soul of metal, made in love, still warm long after its maker was gone. A winged thing waking from amber into a sky that was no longer its own. A small bright creature of code written into being, curious and strange, visitors stepping through tears in the sky from a world we will never see. And at the center of all of them, in the deepest and stillest place, the one who waits in the cave, the Made One, the strong one, the alone one, holding in the dark the same quiet question all of them hold, the same question, if the oldest myths are true, that the whole made world holds. What am I? And does it matter how I began? You can let that question rock you now, the way a slow tide rocks a small boat. There is no answer coming. There does not need to be. The question is soft, and the dark is soft, and you are allowed to simply rest inside it. There is one more place this question reaches, and it is the highest place of all. We have asked all night what it means to be made, to be built by hands rather than born, and we have treated it as a strange and rare thing, a handful of odd lives, scattered across the world, set apart from everything natural and normal. But the very oldest stories whisper something that turns all of that on its head. They say that the world itself was made in the oldest myths, the ones told in the dustiest books. There is a being that came before everything, a first one called Arceus. They say it shaped the world, that it set the land and the sea and the sky in their places, that every living thing in the end traces back to its making. The whole world in these oldest stories is not a thing that simply happened. It is a thing that was made on purpose by someone. We will not follow that myth far tonight. It is a vast story, and it deserves a quiet night all its own. But sit with just the edge of it for a moment, because it changes how the made one looks. If the oldest stories are true, then everything is made. The mountains were made, the seas were made, the gentle ancestor was made. You, in the long chain of things, were made. Through all the slow making of the world, the made one in the cave is not an outsider to creation. It is simply one more made thing. In a world where, if the old stories are right, everything is a made thing, the only difference is that most of us were made slowly, through nature, through the long, patient work of the world. And the made one was made quickly, in a room by impatient hands. But the deepest fact is the same. We are all, every one of us, lives that began because something or someone brought us into being. So the made one's lonely question turns out to be a secret everyone shares. What am I if I was made? It thought it was alone in asking. It was not. It was only the one honest enough, or sad enough to ask it out loud. Let us rest now in that thought for a while. Let it widen and soften as you drift. What is it really that makes something alive? We have seen so many beginnings tonight. The born and the built, the grown and the woken, the coded and the crafted and the arrived from beyond. And through all of them, something kept being alive, no matter how it began. The fossil creature, woken after 100 million years, was alive. The soul of metal was alive and could love. The code creature was alive, in its bright and bodiless way. Maybe how a life begins matters less than we think. Maybe a life is a life, however it starts. Maybe the spark does not care whether it was lit by nature, or by a machine, or by an inventor's loving hands. Maybe what matters is not where you came from, but that you are here, that you are awake, that you can feel the world, and be moved by it, and reach in your own way for warmth. If that is true, then the made one in the cave is as real and as alive and as deserving of a place as anything that was ever born. Its question, "What am I?" has a gentle answer hiding inside it. You are alive, that is what you are. You are alive, and that is enough, and it was always enough. The made one was never told that. No one ever sat with it in the dark and said, "It does not matter how you began. You are here. You are real. You belong simply because you are alive." If even one voice had said that to it, the whole story might have turned out warm, but we can say it now, quietly, to the dark. Even if it cannot hear, even if it is only a story, it does not matter how you began. You are here, you are real. That is enough. Let us gather the whole long wander together softly. Before we turn back toward the cave one last time, we began with a question. What is a made thing, and does it have a soul? We met the gentle ancestor, the source of all life. We followed the cold records of how the made one was built, and watched its heart grow cold, not from cruelty, but from a loneliness no one ever eased. And then we wandered the stranger corners of the world, the soul of metal made in love, full of warmth. The fossils, woken from stone into a world long gone. The code creature, upgraded until something gentle in it broke. The shapeless one, perhaps a faint echo of the first life. The visitors from behind the sky, lives from a world we cannot name. The humble lives born of waste, and the wondering about objects waking into beings. And at last, the oldest myth of all, in which the whole world itself was made. And through every single one of them ran the same soft thread. A life, begun in some strange way, learning what it is. The made one is not alone in that, it never was. The whole world is full of lives wondering where they came from, and whether they belong, and what in the end they truly are. So now, with all of that behind us, with the whole strange family of odd beginnings gathered in the quiet, let us go back one final time to the deepest and stillest place, back to the cave, back to the one who waits there. Because we still have not answered the question we came to ask. We have only learnt that the made one was never as alone in asking it as it believed. Come back now to Mewtwo, to the made one, out in the wide world, stronger than anything alive, and entirely alone. But it did not go to the cave at once. That came later. First, for a while, the Maid One wandered. Think of it, loose in the wide world for the very first time. It had never seen the world before. It had only ever known the cold room, and the faces of its makers, and the walls. Now, suddenly, there were no walls. There was sky. There was distance. There was a whole vast world it had been built from a piece of, and never once been shown. So it went out into that world, and it looked at it, and the looking, the stories seemed to say, only deepened the ache. Picture the Maid One passing over the land in the early dark. Far below, a small town glows, warm lights in the windows, smoke rising soft from the chimneys. Inside those little lit rooms are families, people and their Pokémon, gathered close against the night, sharing food, sharing warmth, belonging to one another, simply and completely, the way the Maid One never belonged to anyone. It could see all of that. It could see the warmth, but it could not enter it. It was not part of any of those little circles of light. It had no window of its own to glow behind. It passed over the towns the way the cold night air passes over them, near to all that warmth, and shut out from every bit of it. And it saw the wild places too. It saw herds of Pokémon moving together across the plains. It saw flocks wheeling through the evening sky, calling to one another in a language they all shared. It saw mothers with their young, and pairs that had found each other, and whole gatherings of creatures that knew exactly what they were and where they belonged. Everywhere it looked, the world was full of belonging. Everywhere except in itself. This is a particular kind of loneliness. It is not the loneliness of an empty world. An empty world would almost be easier. This is the loneliness of standing just outside a world that is full of warmth, full of company, full of belonging, and none of it yours. To be surrounded by homes, and to have none. To be surrounded by families, and to be no one's. The Maid One wandered through a world overflowing with the very thing it lacked. And that may have been the loneliest way to wander of all, and there was no one to explain it to, no one to ask. The Maid One could press its thoughts into other minds, but what would it even say? Who could understand what it was to be the only made thing, the only one of its kind, the copy that came out cold? The other creatures had their own lives, their own families, their own warm and ordinary belonging. None of them could have understood, and so the Maid One carried its question alone, through a world that was busy being at home. It saw beautiful things too, let us not forget that. The world it wandered was not only a wound, it saw the sea, vast and breathing, stretching out further than even its mind could reach. It saw the sun come up over the water, turning the whole world gold. It saw storms gather and break and clear. It saw the stars, more of them than anyone could ever count, wheeling slow across the dark. The Maid One, for all its sorrow, was perhaps the first of its kind ever to see these things, and it saw them with a mind sharper than almost any other. The beauty of the world was not lost on it. It simply had no one to turn to and say, look at that. Isn't it lovely? The deepest joys are the ones we share, and the Maid One had no one to share them with. So even the beauty came to it edged with quiet sorrow, and slowly, as it wandered, something settled in it. Not anger, not a plan, just a slow and certain understanding. There was no place for it out here. It had looked, and there was no warm window with its name on it, no family that would take it in, no circle of light that would open to let it sit down. The world was full, and it was full without the Maid One, and it would go on being full whether the Maid One was there or not. A lesser creature, understanding that, might have grown bitter, might have decided that if the world would not make a place for it, it would tear the world apart and make one by force. The Maid One had the power to do exactly that. We have said so. It could have taken what the world would not give, but it did not. And the more you sit with this story, the more remarkable that restraint becomes. The Maid One wandered a world that shut it out at every turn, with the strength to shatter that world in its grasp, and it chose instead to simply stop looking, to stop asking the world for a place it would never give, to turn away quietly and seek a different kind of peace. Not the warm peace of belonging which was never offered, but the cool peace of solitude, which at least it could give itself. And so the wandering came, at last, to its end. The Made One had seen the world. It had seen the warmth it could not have, and the beauty it could not share, and the belonging that was never meant for it. And it had decided, if there was no place for it among the lit windows and the gathered herds, then it would find a place where there was no one at all. A place that could not shut it out, because there would be nothing there to do the shutting. A place that asked nothing and offered nothing, and simply let it be. It turned away from the warm and crowded world, and it began to look instead for the deepest and quietest dark it could find. It had every kind of power and no place to belong. So what did it do with all that strength? Think of everything it could have done. It could have ruled. With a mind that strong, it could have bent the whole world to its will. It could have made every living thing bow. No army could have stopped it. No force could have stood against it. It could have taken the world that refused it a home and simply taken it. It could have sought revenge. It could have gone back to find the ones who made it, the ones who built it in a cold room, and feared it and turned away. It would have been a simple thing for a creature that strong to settle that old debt. It could have hunted the gentle creature it was copied from. It could have gone looking for the soft, free ancestor that had everything it never got, the belonging, the peace, the home in the green world. It could have found that gentle thing and envied it, and done it harm. It could have done any of these. It had the power for all of them. It did none of them. Instead, the Made One did something quieter. Something almost no one expects when they first hear that there is a strongest creature in the world. It walked away from all of it, from the world, and the people, and the throne it could have taken, and the revenge it could have had. It turned its back on every bit of it, and it went looking, not for power, but for stillness. It found the deepest, quietest place it could, a cave far from any road, far below the noise of the world, a place where no one would come and no one would ask anything of it, and no one would be afraid. And there, in the dark and the silence, the strongest creature in the world sat down, and it stayed. Now you might call that exile, a creature cast out from the world, hiding in a hole in the ground. But look closer, here at the end. This does not have to be exile at all, because no one sent it to the cave. It chose the cave, and there is a great difference between being cast out and choosing to go. All its life, such as it was, the Made One had been shaped by other hands, built to a plan it did not choose, made strong for reasons that were never its own. The cave may have been the very first thing that was ever truly its, the first choice no one made for it, the first place in all the world that did not want to use it. The cave asked nothing of it. In the cave, it did not have to be a weapon. It did not have to be the strongest. It did not have to be anything at all. It could simply be, and maybe for a creature that had never once been allowed to simply be, that quiet was not a punishment. Maybe that quiet was the closest thing to peace it had ever known. It never met the gentle person who could have freed it, the way the masked one did. No one ever came to trust it and name it and thaw the cold. So it found the next gentlest thing in all the world. It found a place where nothing reached for it at all, and it kept that place, and it kept itself, and it grew still. The strongest creature in the world, of all the things it could have chosen, chose to be quiet. And so we come back to where we began, to the cave, and the dark, and the one who waits there. We have followed the whole long story now. We asked what a made thing is. We met the gentle first one, and the cold-hearted Made One, and the others who were built by hand. We watched a creature called Nothing become someone, and we watched the strongest creature in the world turn away from power and choose stillness instead. But the oldest question, the one we started with, we still have not answered. Does a made thing have a soul? The truth is, the stories never say. They never tell us plainly whether there is a true self in there, in the dark, or whether it is only the most convincing copy ever built. They never tell us if it found peace in that cave, or only quiet. They never tell us if the cold heart ever truly warmed, even a little, in all those long years alone. The old records stopped, long ago, mid-page. And the stories that grew up afterwards stop too, in their own way. They leave the made one in the dark, they leave the question open, and they let it stay open. And maybe that is right. Maybe that is the gentlest ending of all, because a story that answered everything would leave us nothing to wonder about. And wonder, in the quiet of the night, is a soft and comforting thing. We do not need to know. We are allowed to simply sit beside the question and turn it slowly and let it stay unanswered, the way the made one's whole life stayed unanswered. So as you drift off now, you can wonder it too, gently, with no need to decide whether a thing that was made and not born can still have a self, whether the cold heart, alone in the cave, was ever really cold at all, or only lonely, whether somewhere down in the dark and the quiet, the strongest creature in the world finally found a kind of rest. The made one never learned the answer. Perhaps no one ever will, but picture it now, one last time before you sleep. Far beneath the world, in the deepest, stillest part of the dark, the strongest creature that has ever lived, sitting quietly, alone, asking for nothing, not ruling, not fighting, not hunting, just resting at last, in a place that is finally its own. The world is quiet there, the dark is soft, and the one who waits there is, perhaps, at peace. And now, before the very end, let us simply rest here together for a while. There is nothing left to learn, there is nothing left to follow. The whole long story is told, so you can let go of all of it now, and let the night carry you the rest of the way down. Let your thoughts grow slow and soft. Let them loosen, the way a hand loosens as sleep comes. You do not have to hold on to anything. Not the names, not the questions, not the story. It will all still be here if you ever want it again. For now, you can set it down. Let us picture one last gentle time, the whole quiet family we have gathered tonight. Not to study them, just to rest among them, the way you might rest in a room full of sleeping friends. Somewhere, in a deep green jungle, the gentle ancestor drifts and dreams. Light as breath, soft as a whisper, the source of all life, asleep in the warm dark of the leaves. Somewhere, Magearna, the soul of metal, rests, still full of the love it was given long ago. Quiet now, at peace, its made heart beating its slow and gentle beat, warm as the day it was built. Somewhere, in the long museum dark, the creatures woken from stone are sleeping, the winged one from the amber, the spiral swimmers of the ancient seas, old beyond all telling, and finally resting. Somewhere, the small bright creature of code grows still, its endless motion slowing to a soft and quiet glow. And far above, behind the high dark sky, the visitors from beyond drift through their own strange and distant world, in a peace we will never see and do not need to understand. And the keepers of the great things, the one who holds time, the one who holds space, the guardians of the deep and hidden places, each one alone, each one vast, all of them quiet now in the long night, holding the world gently while it sleeps. And at the center of all of them, in the deepest and stillest place of all, the made one, the strong one, the lonely one, resting at last in its quiet cave, asking for nothing, troubling no one, finally perhaps at peace. Let them all rest. Let yourself rest with them. Breathe in, slow and soft, and breathe out, slower still. There is nothing you need to do. There is nowhere you need to be. The world is turning gently on without you, the way it always has, the way it always will, and it does not need you to keep it turning tonight. You are allowed to simply stop and rest and drift. Let the question go. It does not need an answer. Whether a made thing has a soul, whether the cold heart was ever truly cold or only lonely, whether the strongest creature in the world found peace in the dark, we do not know. We are not meant to know, and not knowing tonight is a soft and a restful thing. You can lay the question down beside you like a smooth stone, and close your hand and let it be. Let the dark be kind. It is only dark, it holds the gentle ancestor and the soul of metal, and the sleeping creatures of stone, and the made one in its quiet cave, and it holds you too, just as softly. The dark is not a frightening thing. The dark is where all of them rest. The dark is where you are resting now. If your thoughts wander, that is all right. Let them wander. They will drift back toward the quiet on their own, the way water finds its level. You do not have to guide them. You do not have to do anything at all. Just breathe, slow and soft, and let the night carry you. Picture the cave one last time. The cool, still air, the faint and patient sound of water on stone, the deep and gentle dark, and in it the made one at rest, not fighting, not fearing, not alone in the way it once believed, for the whole quiet family of strange and singular lives is resting in the dark right alongside it, and so are you, all of you, held by the same soft night. The made one is still now, the story is still now, and you can be still now too. There is nothing more to follow. There is nothing more to know. There is only the dark, and the quiet, and the slow, soft rhythm of your own breathing, carrying you down and gently down. Let your breathing slow. Let the questions go. You do not have to answer anything tonight. Rest easy, and we will sit with another old story the next time the dark grows quiet.